Did you know that straw can actually be used as natural insulation? Only one catch. Your wall has to be about as thick as this bale is in order for it to be practical. We're going over healthy insulations in this video. And don't worry, we're gonna talk about stuff that works a lot better than that. The ones I actually wanna go over with you are on this table. Now, 2 of these you've probably heard of, but the other 3, my guess is you have not. We've got sheep's wool right here. We've got timber insulation. We've got hemp insulation. And then the 2 you've probably heard of, we actually have paper cellulose and mineral wool. So let's go through these and compare them. We're gonna see how they do with absorbing and transferring water through, their permeability, and we will also see how they do with this. You don't want your insulation to catch fire easily. We've also got some more standard products that we will also see how easily they catch fire. Let's start off by talking about this timber bat here. This is timber bats from the company Timber HP. They're out of Maine. And what this is essentially ground up wood fibers that are dried out, they're mixed with a binder, and then they are pressed together. And this is made for a 16 on center wall. And the price range on them is not too bad. If you want to get up to like an R20 or so on your wall, I'm using that number just because we're going to compare across different types of insulation. You can do that for about $1.50 a square foot. And these are supposed to be awesome for a number of things. Number one, they're almost always completely natural. Now, you can have a synthetic binder used sometimes, essentially the glue they've used to hold everything together. But wood bats do an excellent job of insulating. They're non-toxic. And they transfer water really well. They can absorb up to like 15 to 20% of their own weight in water before they really start losing their ability to insulate. And they have great permeability. So if they do get wet, let's pour a little water on here and see what happens. It should soak through, all right? And it should be able to dry out extremely well. Now it's really sitting on the top here right now. You can see it absorbed through, and we'll take a look at the backside in a minute here. You can get this in bats that go inside your wall cavity. You can also get it as an exterior board to go on. I'm hopefully gonna try that out on the next part of my shop build here. And you can also get it as loose fill, blow it in like cellulose. What really excites me about this product is using it on the exterior. They've been doing this in Europe for a long time, but it's very uncommon here in the United States. And what this product can do well is it will heat up during the day with the sun, and that heat transfer happens very slowly through the building. It has a delay of like 8 to 12 hours. So it heats up during the day, and it doesn't heat the building up during the day, but 8 to 12 hours later, that heat starts to make its way through into your building. And so as it cools off in the night, you've got this stuff helping to heat the building back up. And then you have the same effect going on when it becomes day again, and it's been able to cool down overnight. So I'm very excited about that. And since this is made from the waste products at sawmills, it's incredibly sustainable, and it's fairly reasonably priced. To be able to get the product for about $1.50 to hit like in the R20, R22 range in a 2x6 wall is not too bad. To give you some perspective, that's got to be around $1 a square foot. And we're just talking materials if you do that with fiberglass. So it's about 50% more to use this. Let's take a look at the back. Nothing's come through, and I don't think it will. I think you'd have to have way, way, way more water to actually go through because this stuff absorbs really well. And we'll just set it to the side and kind of see how long does it take for that to dry out. Let's take a second and just go over mineral wool real quick. This one you've probably heard of. You can actually buy it at Home Depot or whatever big box store you go to. And essentially what mineral wool is they take what I believe is basalt rock. It's a volcanic type of rock, and they heat it up until it melts, and they spin it. And it spins into all these tiny little fibers, and then they use a binder, and they glue and press it together. It's an excellent thermal, sound, and fire insulation. So it's got a good R value. Its R value is usually a little bit north of 4 R4 per inch. But what I don't like so much about this for interior insulation is if you've ever installed it, it is very irritating. I find it significantly more irritating to work with than like your standard fiberglass. Fiberglass is irritating enough, but this stuff was incredibly irritating to work with to my body. And it's also gonna have some binders in it that you may not want inside your house. I don't trust these big companies that don't tell you what's in their products. I wanna know what's in my products. all right? Now, for exterior insulation, this is gonna be kind of hard to beat because it's incredibly permeable, meaning water can go through it and dry out super, super well. So if you got it outside your vapor barrier on the outside of the house, and that would be like a rigid panel, it wouldn't be bats, it could be really good for that. Now, some of these products do contain formaldehyde. Now, they say that the big companies like Rockwool and Owens Corning no longer use formaldehyde, or it's at least low formaldehyde, but I'd probably do some serious double checking on that before I went using it in my house. I actually did use it in my house in some areas back before I got on this whole healthy building gig. And Rockwool is a bit more expensive. From just doing a quick Lowe's search, it looked like an R23 was gonna run you about $2 a square foot for the material. And unlike fiberglass, this stuff doesn't come faced. You know, there's none of the vapor paper on there. And with it being so vapor open, you're gonna have to use this in conjunction with a vapor barrier. I think excellent for outside, not a big fan for inside. All right, let's talk about sheep's wool. This is from a company called Havelock Wool. And they literally take the wool of sheep, they wash it. I believe that it does get some type of borate treatment. Borate is a compound that is supposed to keep pests and insects out of it and from eating it. It causes them to die, but it's supposed to be very low toxicity or non-toxic to humans. Now, I'm gonna tell you, you don't really get away from borate. It's gonna be in almost everything. It's gonna be in timber bats, it's gonna be in your sheep's wool, it's gonna be in your hemp over here. It's most certainly gonna be in your paper cellulose. And so from my research, the very small amounts used in our insulation are not gonna bother humans. This is more of a premium product. You're gonna pay a pretty penny to put this into your house, but it has a little bit of an earthy smell. It's a good smell. And they say you can actually handle this without the respirator and without the protection because it's just so non-toxic, all right? Wool, as you know, is used in a lot of high quality wearable goods. It's what hikers wear to stay warm even when they're wet. And what does that mean? It means wool can absorb tons of moisture before it starts to lose its insulating properties. Now, hopefully you don't have a ton of moisture in your wool, but it can actually absorb up to like 30% of its weight in moisture. And that's before it starts to lose its ability to insulate. It dries incredibly well. As you can imagine, a sheep's coat needs to dry well, so it does dry very well. And one of the coolest things about this product is that it has these natural keratin proteins in them. And from my basic understanding, keratin proteins are found in like human hair, animal hair, bird feathers, etc. And they have the ability to help clean the air in your house, actually. These keratin proteins will bind to things like VOCs, and they'll permanently bind to them. So this is gonna be an air quality boost to your house. Now, this doesn't come in an exterior insulation board. You're gonna have it in a bat that you can put in your wall cavity, or you're gonna have a pack in. So for the bats, they stuff it inside these nets, and then you can put that bat into the wall, or you can pack it in. It's also very mold resistant. I think that this is an awesome product that I would like to try out on one of my own builds. It is kind of expensive though. Our material cost on this to get in like the range of an R20, like R22 I think was about $350 per square foot. That's just the material. So, we're at 3x the cost of fiberglass at that point. To give some reference, we're not gonna talk a lot about spray foam here, but spray foam is gonna run you for like an R20 in the neighborhood of like $3 to $4 per square foot. And obviously that's with a professional doing it. That's actually an installed price. You don't just DIY spray foam. And that will vary depending on where you're at in the United States too. Let's move on to talking about cellulose. Cellulose is essentially ground up newspaper, jeans, stuff like that, all right? And so it's completely recycled. I'm looking here and you can actually see, I don't know if you can read that. There's the print, it's a newspaper. And they grind it up, they treat it with borate so it won't mold and it won't burn, all right? Those are the two things that borate help with, molding and burning, because paper would be very primed for both of those things if it didn't have that treatment. And then you blow it in. Now this is a quite natural method and it's supposed to be a pretty healthy insulation option. I'm gonna tell you what I don't like about this though, all right? Number one, I don't like that it's gonna sag in your wall cavity if it's not really packed in there. Over time, a material like this is just gonna pack in and settle, especially if not done quite right. And you know what I don't like? Look at all this fiber. I mean, this looks like an animal nest. I hate going in my attic. I've got this in my attic. I hate going up there. I hate going into my lungs. I can only imagine that it comes down through my can lights, through the little gaps there. I can't imagine this is good for particle count in your air. I think it's probably bad for that. It is fairly cheap. You can get an R20 on your wall for like $1 to $2 per square foot installed. And again, you don't usually DIY this. You'd have to rent the blower, which you can do, but most people pay to have it professionally done. I personally don't plan to use this much again in the future, but it is more on the budget side, and it can also work well in conjunction with the second type of insulation. All right, let's talk about our hemp now. Right here, I've got a hemp bat, all right? So this goes in the wall cavity. You can also get an exterior panel, which is pretty cool. These come in either 3/4 of an inch or 2 inches thick. And this is from the company Hempitecture. I think I'm saying that right. They sent me a free sample kit for this video. Shout out to them. I appreciate it. They also have a carpet pad product, which I thought was pretty cool. So if you don't want to go with one of those synthetic carpet pads, you can actually get a hemp mat instead. Now remember, hemp used to be illegal to grow actually because it is very similar to the marijuana plant. It just has a much lower THC content in the leaves. So it's used, especially in the Michigan area, there's tons of hemp farms around here and they make CBD out of it. But the stalks are actually used way back into history for things like making ropes. They have a very fibrous stalk, and what you're seeing in the insulation is actually the fibers in that stalk. They'll let them dry out, and then they separate those fibers out. They put a binder in there, they press them together, and it makes an excellent insulation product. This stuff's about R3.5 to R4 per inch, about similar to the timber bat. The sheep's wool was also right in that range. It's not quite as permeable as your timber bat or your sheep's wool, but it's also very permeable. We will pour a little water on here just for fun, just to kind of see what it does. Let's pour a little water on this one. I forgot about that. Just running off onto my table. And while I'm at it, might as well, right? Oh boy, it just it disappears. You cannot tell me this stuff is going to dry that well. Maybe it will. They say it actually does okay with moisture absorbing and getting rid of it. It doesn't seem like it would though. The wool, gotta hit it too while we're at it. Interesting. We gotta compare to fiberglass, right? I go straight in. It went straight in like none of the other ones. It's kind of absorbed in there. I'm not sure if it soaked through or it just went to the bottom. I think it just went down to the bottom from the side. Hemp grows super fast in 100 days. So if you do really care about the environment, even though the focus I'm giving is a little more from a health perspective, hemp is a very environmentally friendly product. I think that this is going to be huge in the future. I think a lot of these things will be huge, especially the timber and the hemp. Sheep's wool, I think, is going to be a little bit cost prohibitive, but it's fairly resistant to mold. It dries out well, and it's reasonably priced. You can get to that R20 range for $1.50 to $2 a square foot. You are supposed to wear protection when you install this, just because I guess there's more fiber. Same with the wood, you're supposed to wear protection for that too. Now, I know a lot of people don't, even with like fiberglass and mineral wool, which is crazy. I do think these products are gonna be way less toxic, way healthier. Now let's get to the fun part. Let's go outside and see how these things burn. Now this stuff burns at like 5,000 degrees or something. Let's start off with this hay here. You know, if I had been a settler in like 1850, I would have highly considered building my house from straw bales. They probably didn't even exist back then. But I have a very hard time taking these ideas seriously. Oh boy. Hope there's no prairie fires coming our direction at Little House on the Prairie. I'm gonna say that fails the fire rating test. What do you guys think? Let's try out these timber bats. They're supposed to char, but not burn. We're gonna find out. No flame. Smells like burning wood. I do like that, not a chemical smell. Let's go a little longer. I gotta say, pretty impressed with that. That's a lot of heat. Let's try down here where it's coming apart though. If it can get an edge, kind of like with wood, you know, kindling, I can see it's gonna burn a little bit. But if it's truly compressed and it can't get, you know, it can't get an edge, I think it's gonna work quite well at resisting fire. All right, let's go for the hemp wool next. That's burning. Reminds me of my college days. Just kidding. That is actually on fire. This one's smoking a little too. Now, to be fair, I did kind of attack the edge on this one a little more, but I can see this is way more flammable, and that's probably because it's not as dense. This is very dense. All right, let's see how our sheep's wool does. And I think I forgot to tell you this, but this is excellent sound insulation as well, guys. I'm actually going to be using it to do some sound paneling in my studio. Oh, shoot. That smells like when you burn yourself. It smells like human skin. Whew, that burns fairly easily. I'm actually gonna put that out because I wanna keep this sample. All right, this in theory should not burn at all. It just melts, as you would expect from a rock, which is essentially what this is. Fiberglass. Fiberglass should not burn, but the resins used in it may. It's not really burning. Now, if we had the craft paper on the edge for the vapor barrier, I imagine that would light up pretty nice, but it's not really burning. And lastly, let's try out our paper cellulose. We got a little fire going, not too bad. If you want to live in a healthy space, I think spending some extra money on your insulation to make it as healthy as possible is very important. But what's also important is the area you choose to live in. You see, the city you live in will have a huge determination on the diseases you get, how long you live, and a whole host of other things. So click on this video right here to see which cities are the most toxic to live in and which cities are the most healthy. Thanks for watching.